Hello everyone, welcome back to the Vinci Hair Podcast. My name is Josh. Today we've got a fantastic guest for you in the shape of Neil. Neil, nice to see you.
Hello.
How's it going?
Wonderful, actually.
All the way from Manchester?
That's right.
Yeah.
Come down on the train this morning.
Fantastic. Red or blue?
Blue.
Okay, well, this is a great start.
Happy days after
I'm a
the
Chelsea fan, so
Okay.
I can't comment at all. So.
No problem.
No, but listen, really great to see you. Obviously working for Vinci now?
Yeah, I'm coming into my 5th year now.
Yeah, how you finding it?
Wonderful.
Yeah?
It's been a great opportunity that Dr. Bjornson gave me many, many years ago. And I've relished in the role. And the great thing is about helping people, trying to achieve the goals and making them feel more confident in themselves.
So run me back to the start. So as I said, from Manchester originally. Did you grow up there or?
Yes, I was born in Manchester, and when we was 6 months old, the family moved to Australia for 4.5 years.
Really?
We came back back to Manchester, and then I joined the military when I was 17. So
Okay.
I did 10 years in the military, and then came out and then did a bit of global trotting. So
Where'd you go?
I went to Canada for a year, and then down to Los Angeles for 2.5 years.
How was that?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Really, really amazing. At one point, I had an oceanfront apartment in Redondo Beach for 6 months, and the lifestyle was just wow.
So why'd you come back?
I've been on the road, in the army for 10 years, over there for 3 years, and basically I just felt a bit homesick.
Yeah.
So I came back and regretted it ever since.
I can well imagine. God. And so you came back from the army, or so you left the army and then went sort of on a belated gap year, I guess you could call it.
Sort of, yeah.
Fantastic. And then so what did you do work-wise then when you came back from that gap year?
When I came back into the UK, I went into the hard knock sales. So I worked for a big PLC company. It was a company called Danker PLC. They were the second largest photocopier company. So it was hard work.
Was that after Xerox, I guess?
More of a private side, but they were huge. At one point, they used to sponsor Everton at Danker with the horses.
Of course, yeah. God, yeah, that is going back some, eh?
About many years.
Crikey, I think who was sponsoring Chelsea? I think it was probably Coors. Would it have been Coors around that time? So sort of like early to mid 90s, something like that. Yeah. And so how? So you obviously worked in that field and obviously now working at Vinci. Tell me a little bit about the journey with your hair as well. So how did it all manifest itself? Obviously taking a great interest in it, and obviously we've been speaking off camera as well. Your knowledge of it is really paramount. So how did you find yourself going down the journey of hair loss and then also hair revival as well?
Okay, let's start from what I would normally ask a client. Do you have hereditary hair loss that runs within the family? Very, very important question. My father went to the grave with a full head of hair, same as his dad. Now, my mother's father was bald as a coot. He was stage 7. Okay. We use a scale called the Norwood-Hamilton scale, so it's the lowest number on that scale. And he was dead, 10 years before I was even born. And what happens is you get the gene and it's passed on to you, and your gene will dictate when you're going to go bald, how severe it's going to be and what stage in your life that's going to happen to you. So if we was to fast forward to when I was 25, my temporal apexes, the corners, went really quite high. And then nothing happened after that. It was stable.
How old are you at this point?
So I was 25, 26.
Okay,
so really high corners had gone,
yeah.
But the rest of the hair was fine.
Right.
And I didn't really see any problems until I did some steroid abuse in the gym, pumping weights when I was 42.
Yeah.
And within 3 months of taking steroids, I lost around about 4 inches in the crown.
So I think it's interesting you said that. I mean, something that I've seen more frequently, I think, you talk about taking steroids and performance-enhancing drugs, whether it's Anavar, Dianabol, whatever it is, test, all of these sort of, well, maybe let's say test, but there seems to be obviously an uptick in people taking steroids, and part of the sort of whole image conscious society that we live in today, as well as also the hair falling out. Is it a foregone conclusion that if you do take these steroids that your hair will fall out as a guy, or is it
I
kind of in the hands of the gods?
say it's based on individuals. If you've got somebody who's got hereditary hair loss from both sides of the family, then the chances are if they take any type of steroids, it's going to be more active. But again, we have to look at every customer, every patient as a unique individual, because they may be in a different journey to somebody else. We see people who are completely bald at 19, 20, 21 years of age. You know, we see other people who don't see any form of hair loss until they're 50. You know, so just because you take something doesn't mean necessarily that you will have hair loss. However, the percentages will probably dictate something's going to happen. And with myself, it happened very, very quickly. So this was around about 2005. And at that point, my hairdresser, who's actually the official hairdresser for Man United, so when I go in and have my hair cut, I can't talk football.
Great plug.
But there was him, his business partner, who's unfortunately not with us now. We went to see a specialist doctor. And
this was in Manchester.
This was in Manchester in 2005. So he provided us, and at the time I could never remember what it was called. So I used to call it the magic lotion potion and the magic pill. And basically, I saw, you know, some results because not all the follicle units were dead.
Right.
So we managed to rescue a few, and I stayed on that treatment for over 3 years. At that time, I was in the mortgage game. I was a mortgage broker, and unfortunately, the credit crunch hit in mid 2007, 2008. And for 18 months, I didn't receive any income because every time we tried to place business, all the either the lenders were going bust, they were changing the criteria. It was a very, very difficult time. So I couldn't afford the treatment. That had to stop. You know, a few months later, I couldn't afford a haircut. So out came the clippers, and I literally gave up on my hair until we got to about 2017. And then I thought, my ears are getting a bit bigger, we need to camouflage it. So, you know, we started on some treatments. So that was my introduction to Vinci Hair Clinic.
And so with this hair, with the magic potion or the magic lotion, as you said, I mean, I've always got visions of, remember I don't know if you've seen the Simpsons episode where Homer takes the magic potion.
No, I don't.
So obviously Homer's very famously bald, and there's a great scene in The Simpsons, there's a great clip where he takes the magic potion and goes to bed and wakes up the next day with a full head of hair. And of course, all the sort of the usual tropes come out. So he gets all the attention from colleagues, he gets the attention from other women in the working environment, and all this sort of stuff. And it's and there is this sort of feeling of instant that there's going to be a very quick what's the word for it?
Results.
Yeah, quick result, exactly. But this was back in 2005, and of course, it was back. I mean, I can only imagine back then. I mean, when I did my transplant, last year, you still got some raised eyebrows from people. But back in 2005 and earlier, I can imagine that there wasn't probably that much information out there. It was a sort of a...
No, because 2005, if my memory serves me well, when we had the internet, we were still plugging the computers into the wall sockets. So if you tried to ring up a friend, it was beep, 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 you know. But I was still getting people at that point saying to me I was going to get some side effects from the treatment. And some people do.
Such as? What were some of the side effects?
The main one is ED.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I actually had something which was quite unique, and I remember asking Dr. Bjornsson the question. I had an opposite effect, because what you have is the hormone DHT is really a coming together of your testosterone and the enzymes 5-alpha reductase. When they come together, they're literally in plain English stopping the blood supply getting to the follicle unit, so the hairs gradually get thinner and thinner and thinner until they die. So when you look at taking the treatment, you're almost like controlling the 5-alpha reductase, and if you can control that, then basically you'll get more blood supply in. I got an increase in testosterone, and I also got a big increase in libido, you know, so it was it's not something that you read too much on the internet about the positives. You only seem to read about the negatives. This is a treatment that's helped millions of men, you know, over 3 decades stop losing hair. It stabilizes the hair loss, and it's very, very important. The magic lotion potion, which is minoxidil, this basically is a vasodilator, and it opens up the capillary veins, so it allows more blood in. Okay, so again, these are still 2 of what I would call the foundational treatments. So if you've got the right food source, minerals, nutrients, and vitamins, you've got a vasodilator and you've got a DHT blocker, which is finasteride. Okay, there's different types of DHT blockers. Salt palmetto, which is basically stick your toe in the water, you'll get a little bit of protection, but not too much. Finasteride, which is the main one. It's an oral tablet that most people take. It's the cheapest option. And you know, there's also dutasteride, which is the strongest medication. We don't recommend people to go on that one too often.
When you say strong, what are you talking
more side effects?
Much more side
potentially,
effects.
yeah.
And those are the side effects like ED or anything else. I can imagine.
So it's more powerful. Yeah. So we don't recommend this at the clinic.
So we're going back to 2005 when obviously you embarked upon the journey of restoring the hair loss, and that was with the magic potion, as you said, and of course the financial crisis in 2008 as well. And then you met Salva. Run me through what you obviously wanted to go back down this journey of restoring.
It was
your
more
hair.
of a case I had my own business, and the industry we were in was having a really, really bad time, and financially it wasn't stable. So, like most people, they start looking around, and I saw a job advert that came up, and I had a number of telephone interviews, one with the chief operating officer. The other one was with the CFO, and then I had one with Dr. Bjornsson, which was a very, very interesting, let's say, an hour call. And he offered me a position without even coming face to face. So,
and this was obviously after the procedure that you had.
Yeah, no, this was going back in 2019.
Okay.
So when I saw the ad or responded to it,
okay.
that was the recruitment thing coming in. And literally I came down to London, and we started on the training, and then basically I was up into Manchester, and I was covering Newcastle, Leeds, Sheffield, and it was a bit of a slog on the road.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And then COVID hit. And at that
yeah.
point, I was actually booked in for my first hair transplant in Malaga. It's an agreement that we had with Dr. Bjornsson. That I have a video done, and I thought this is only going to help me, so I can show people what the clinic is all about, and to have it in Malaga, because they hadn't done any films for a few years. So we had an agreement. I was booked in for surgery on the 26th of March 2020, and we all know what happened.
God, yeah, we do, yeah, because that was in fact, it was that day that I flew out to Brazil. So it was the 26th or the 27th. I remember getting the last flight out of London. And as I was flying over the Atlantic overnight, I remember landing in Sao Paulo, and the newspapers had already said that all the borders were then closed, and that was it. And so I was in.
Stuck.
Worst places to be stuck.
Yeah. I've not been. So,
you've not been?
No, I'm trying to work on Dr. Bjornsson sending me over.
Get down to Sao Paulo. Yeah, but like I said, that's where I got my transplant done.
Yeah.
I got mine done in Alphaville in Sao Paulo. Amazing experience. I mean, it's I think that's sort of one of the things about sort of going through a surgery. You want to feel that you're in very capable hands naturally, okay? But I think, for me, but being in Brazil was just absolutely phenomenal. The people out there that were working with me and helping me and walking me through it was just, it was absolutely incredible. And of course, for you going out to Malaga as well, I mean, that's not exactly a bad place to end up, is it?
It's a wonderful clinic. I mean, you have one of the most sincere, caring, wonderful, and exceptionally talented surgeons over there.
Yeah.
She's just absolutely incredible. And I often say to my patients, the way she runs the clinic is like a Rolex watch.
Really?
The beauty, one of the things I like about Malaga is it's a single surgery. So when the clinic door closes behind you, it's all about you. And it's an amazing feeling. The nurses that work with the doctor, just absolutely incredible. They just make you feel wonderful, and the experience was phenomenal. You know, no pain through the treatment. In the afternoon session, I was given Valium. And this was on the first surgery. Unfortunately, I woke myself up about 3 or 4 times snoring. So when I actually had the second one, I refused to take it.
Did you?
Yeah, because I was embarrassed that I was snoring away. But the girls, there were 2 of the nurses still there, and they had a little giggle. And I said,
quite
look,
good.
I'm not taking this time. So I just ended up watching some Netflix for the second one. But yeah, it's just phenomenal. You know, when I finished the surgery after the first one, I hear a lot of people that go to other clinics abroad. I'm not going to name the country, but you probably got a good indication. And they come back and they say the pains, like with a lot of them, is excruciating. We use a state-of-the-art compressed gas delivery system, and it's almost like somebody's flicking you on the back of the head with a pen. You know, the pain threshold, I would say, is about 2 out of 10. If you have needles, it can be about 14 out of 10, you know, and some people said they would never have a hair transplant, not because of any other part of the procedure, just the local anaesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, the locus anaesthetic for me was, do you know, its bark is worse than its bite. I think. I think if you go in with the idea that it's going to be agonizing, it probably will be. I think if you actually sit down and really think about it, it's not so bad. Also, I was distracted by England's dismal performance against Iran because I was watching it. This was during the World Cup, so I was watching it down then, and I was more shocked at people like Jordan Henderson than I was at what was going into the back of my head.
Yeah, just going back onto that again. I also think it's the skill of the medical teams.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, if you've got somebody who is not really caring and you're just a cuddly toy on a conveyor belt getting stuffed with needles, I could imagine it being extremely painful. You know, I'm sure, you know, all of us have been to a dentist and every now and again they've stuck a needle in you going, oh, and you want to swear, but you choose not to. But if you know, some of these guys that I speak to, they've been through some severe pain, and we don't. I don't come across that with ourselves, and certainly with the compressed gas system. It's a very, very good way to have it done.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The compressed gas system. It's not something that I've read that much about, but I have heard other patients who have had their transplant comment on it. What did you say? It was like flicking.
It's almost like somebody's got a pen.
Just
flicking you on the back of the head. So you hear this bop. If I was to flick a pen on the table there, that's what it sounds like. Yeah. And you just have a number of them going around into the donor area. And that's great.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, for doing your first hair transplant in a foreign country, was there any? You said, of course, it's a single surgery. So it's I mean, in and of itself, it's a much more what's the word for it? It's a much more cozier environment than if you're going to a big, massive marauding clinic in a foreign country. Was there any? Did you have any trepidation about doing it? Was there any sort of last minute? Not fear,
nerves.
But nerves, just general nerves.
I think you're going in for surgery, and yes, you know, you have that little bit of apprehension, you know, a little bit worried. And this is a question that does get raised. You know, what are the concerns? What are the risks? And you know, I turn around to a lot of the patients and I go, look, we're not putting you under. This is not general anaesthetic. And literally all that we're going to do is take follicle units from here and stick them in the front here. We have unbelievably well-trained medical teams. Nothing is subcontracted out. These are teams that work together all the time. And when you have that, you know, the results are going to be great. And, you know, if you'll see some of the pictures of how bad my hair was at one point, then you'll understand that I've got pretty good results for quite an old guy. And don't ask me my age.
I was going to say how old is one. I think we've got some images. I think we can get those up on the screen, can't we? Yeah, we've got some images of that. I think it'd be good to see just a like for like comparison.
Yeah, and you know, it's once you've answering your question, going to Spain. I was actually, as I mentioned before, I was due to have it in 2020. Then COVID hit. And then soon as Spain came off the red list, I was like a rat up a drain pipe.
I bet you know,
were, Up, let's get this done, because it was an agreement that I had with Dr. Bjornson. I was having it, and I was having it done in Malaga. End of story. Okay. Yeah. So we got over there, and I was the first person because the clinic had pretty much been furloughed. And so we didn't know what was going on with regard to what tests you needed to get back into the country. So on that side, it was a little bit stressful. But again, being a pathfinder, what I was able to do was put together a bit of a spreadsheet. So as the clients started to come through the doors, you know, I was able to give them this information, which really, really helps, because it was a bit of a minefield, you know, when travel, you know, restarted. The second one was just so simple. You know, you go to the airport, you come out the airport at Malaga. There's a driver there holding your name card up. Jump into a nice car. He takes you to the hotel. Go in, you know, drop your bags. I had mine done on the Monday, but any other clients can actually drop the bags off and then make the way to the Malaga clinic, which is literally 300 yards away. Okay, so what this does is it reduces the stress for them on the day, because they know where they're going the next morning. Okay?
Yeah, of course.
They'll then go meet the doctor and the medical team and see the clinic, and this puts them really at ease. Okay, so then they can go away, enjoy the evening, turn up at 8:30 in the morning, and then they have their procedures
jobs
done.
are good. What was you obviously said that you went back and got a second.
Yes.
What was the thinking? What was the rationale? What was the reason behind doing it a second time?
When you look at patients and you go to the donor area, we have to literally take hairs out in a specific pattern, because if you take them too close together, the holes confuse. And this is why the back of people's heads sometimes look like pigeons have been pecking away. And that's a permanent disfigurement. So we have to work to these set patterns. Now, when we look at patient's hair, they can have 1 hair follicle units, they can have 2 hair follicle units, they can have 3, they can have 4. Some people can have 5 or 6. Okay, the typical is 1 to 4. Now, in the category range that I would say I was in is an A, which was mainly 1 and 2 hairs. If you're lucky, you're mainly 3s and 4s. So hypothetically, if you're taking 3,000 follicle units out at the back of your head, and you've got 1 hair, you're getting 3,000 of these, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
okay, that's 3,000 hairs. Now, if you're one of the lucky guys and you got loads of 4 hairs, look at the difference in thickness, okay? Then, if you move 3,000 follicle units with 4 hairs, you're getting 12,000 hairs. Now, that's not always the case, but it gives you a good indication of the density difference that you would have, 3,000 hairs against 12,000 hairs. So that's one of the big criteria, what people come in. My friend, got great results, and somebody didn't have as good. Now, I wasn't a great candidate because most of mine were single hairs, and I've got very, very fine hair.
Have you always had fine hair?
Yes, very.
Okay.
So what happens is when we were doing the surgery and we take these out, the hair loss was quite advanced, and we could only safely take out so many follicle units in the one day. Okay, so we built the front up, we put some in the midsection, and then where the hole was, so you can imagine we've got the donut. Okay, we put some hairs in there just to blanket it, and then plan for the next 8 to 12 months to come in and have the second surgery. That's 8 to 12 months ended up being 18 months, just because of work. We've been so busy. So when we went in, we mainly did the work in the crown area. And the fact that this was also interesting, I was already using, the various different types of treatments. The hair regrowth in the crown, which is usually slower than the front because of the blood circulation. the results were phenomenally good within like 3 months. I was like, wow, what's going on? It was just incredible. So, the fact that I can walk down the street and not think about people going, look at him, he looks like a monk. It's just incredible.
Friar Tuck walking down the street. What with the on the subject of the hair follicles, of the hair regrowing and the recovery procedure. Well, how did you find that after the first surgery? Did it happen quicker than you thought? Did it happen slower than you thought?
It was about on par. Okay.
What's on par?
So when you have a hair transplant, you get to about 20 days and the hair shafts drop out. The follicle units pretty much go to sleep, okay? And then they'll just start popping the head out. Some will come out at 20 days, some will come out 30 days, some at 50 days. I still had new hairs coming through at 6 months, and people say, well, how do you know? Well, when you shave and you get the bristle, you can feel them coming through in the hairline and different parts of the transplanted zones. So you can feel that all the way along, and it's interesting that once the hair drops out, you go into what we class as the ugly duckling phase. Okay, you've probably been there.
This phase very well.
You then got to be patient. You can have treatments which can help accelerate. PRP really does help accelerate the growth. But in general, you can get early bloomers, you can get people that are on track, and then you can get late bloomers. And I was probably on track. So I started to see really good results around about 4 months. And then it seemed to go in spurts of every 2 months. Now, a hair transplant can take up to 18 months for it to fully mature. So you would need to think about, if you've got a hair that comes through at, say, 6 months' time after the surgery, when it pops its head up, it's not coming out as a big, thick hair. It comes through as a little baby hair. And typically it takes 3, 6, 9, 12 months for those hairs to fully thicken. Okay, so this is why we say it can take up to 18 months for the transplant to fully mature. And I remember seeing there was a guy who had surgery around about 6 weeks after me in Malaga, a really nice guy, musician from Stoke, and he came to see me for his 6-month review in Manchester, and he really wasn't seeing a lot of growth. We could see the work, the pictures that Dr. Rossler had done was just incredible.
Really?
But it was, a lot of the hairs were still asleep. There's a few which there. And this is what we'd class as a late bloomer. So I said, look, do you trust me? He wasn't a rich guy. He put his transplant on finance. He trusted me. So we give him some treatments and give him some PRP. And then he sent me a video about 4 months later. And it came through whilst I was in consultation. You see it and you go, yeah, what's that about? So I recognised it, but I'm going, who's that? And I'm looking at it, I'm going, who is this rock star? This hair had just gone boom. And then it took me about 2 or 3 minutes to actually work out who it was. And I'm gone, wow. So I got on the phone. I was like, hey, what's happened there? You look like a rock star. He says, it's unbelievable. And he's actually given me around about 6, 7 really, really good leads. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, he's absolutely over the moon.
You said you get some people whose recovery time is a couple of months. Others which is on track, as you say. Mm-hmm. And others late bloomers. I mean, I certainly fall into the category of late bloomer. Okay. It's only really in the last 6 to 8 weeks that it's been commented on by others, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's very hard because you see yourself every day to really gauge the differences. But when the comments start coming in from others is when you start to think, okay, right, it's now time that it's actually coming into its own. What are some of the variables do you think that make that difference? I mean,
so
it could be anything.
One of the biggest things is, and again, this is probably one of the misconceptions that, if you have a hair transplant, everybody's going to be the same. They're going to be on time. It's not, everybody's unique. People could actually be in a stage where the hormone DHT is very active and stopping the blood supply. So the scalp, the reason why they're having a hair transplant is that they've lost hairs. Okay. And they might be in that stage where it's still very active. And so if you put a follicle unit in, you've taken it from this area, the correct area, and there's a lot of clinics that don't take the hairs from the right area, okay? So when it's taken from there, it's immune to the hormone DHT. So when it's, put into the top of the head, it will survive. whereas some of the other ones there, we don't know why. Well, we know that it is. Okay, it's immune to this hormone DHT. So the follicle unit is actually in a very hostile environment, and naturally it's not going to perform as well. Okay, because obviously the skin is going to be very tight and the blood is still struggling to get through. So this is where you would really start to look at where treatments are going to benefit the client. Okay, and it's a combination of different types of treatments, and I find that the treatment pack that I would recommend for the patients will complement this. Again, as I mentioned before, a DHT blocker if it's active, a vasodilator to allow more blood through, and the blood source. And we can use the PRP treatments, which is exceptional for accelerating hairs that are in a growing phase. So these are the type of things which will really, really help people. So if it's not happening, we can try and help them and accelerate them. Now, I also get asked a question, how long do I need to be on treatments? And I usually would recommend that when we're looking at a treatment plan to go 12 months. And then when we get to 12 months, we can then start to back off the amount of dosage that we're using and then go on to a maintenance phase. Okay, so what we want to do is maintain the native hair, that was the hair that you had on top of your head before the transplant, and keep that from getting any thinner and being thick. So all these treatments will help the hairs, be thicker.
A lot of people that I've spoken to, I think, a lot of, as is always the way, a lot of people come out the woodwork. As soon as you get it done, suddenly people are asking, where did you get it done?
Yes.
Why did you get it done? And I feel maybe I'm reading too much into it, and maybe because I've got very sort of close relationships with my friends that they feel more confident to speak about it. Do you think that there is a feeling of not so much a stigma, but maybe a more accepting nature to hair transplants?
Definitely today. Yes.
Why is that, do you think?
I think social media platforms really do a great job in promoting hair transplants. If you look at less than 10 years ago, it was a bit of a stigma. Oh, you're having a hair transplant. Whereas today, all you see is people doing selfies, doing videos of the transplant themselves. So certainly since I've been on board, I've seen a massive change in the thinking of what goes on. So because of the social media platform, it's more noticeable, because it's more readily available and the prices have reduced. Then more people want things to happen, and they want it to happen quickly.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's also, I think, another misconception. I don't know. I've come across it more where hair transplants have always been seen, if there is a surgery for blokes, that would be it. Mm-hmm. But actually something I've seen more recently, or heard about more recently, is women having hair transplants.
Yes.
So for me, a misconception was that it was just it's just a guy surgery that you do because men battle with hair loss, but actually women do as well. I mean, is there anything you can sort of explain about like the trajectory of women now getting more and more hair trans? Has that always been the case, and it's just a little bit more public now, or is there still a stigma associated to it?
I think in general, when you look at the percentages that we do, women are still very low in the amount of percentage for the hair transplant. So if that's a bit of a stigma, but I think in general males suffer with pattern baldness a lot more. But when it does happen to a woman, it can be really, really devastating for them. And typically with female pattern baldness, you'll see it starting to diffuse through the centre. But we also get a lot of ladies that go at the sides here or want to do something with the hairline. So we do a lot of work for the hairlines and the corners. So it's a lot of work that's required. But yeah, we do a lot of that. Just on that one as well, I've also got quite a number of patients who are transgender. And, this is a very, very big stage for them, because what we're actually doing is changing their look from a male hairline, which is very masculine, to a feminine hairline, and the results can be phenomenal.
Of course, yeah, I can imagine. Certainly with, I mean, it's not the male face shape is not just determined by the jawline, but also the hairline.
Absolutely,
as well.
yeah.
Of course, interesting. And so, tell me a little bit about, because I know you've got the clinic opening up we've obviously got the clinic in Manchester, but there's a new one opening up, as I believe. Is that right?
In Deansgate, yes.
In Deansgate,
yeah,
great.
We'll start in the initial phase doing 1 surgery a day, and then we'll ramp that up to 2 surgeries a day as it beds itself in.
Sure.
So,
a bit like the hair follicles.
Absolutely, yeah.
How many surgeries do you do on average a day then?
In London, we do 4.
Okay.
Okay. Malaga is just the 1.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we open Manchester, it'll be just the 1 for the time being, and then as the demand starts to kick in and the teams are bedded in, and we find out the little bugs that you get in any new building, then we will start to ramp that up to 2 a day.
I guess on the subject of stigmas and expectations, my expectation was always that it was going to be a male surgeon, and I don't know why.
So we've had a few female surgeons, and they've been phenomenal.
Yeah, I can only imagine they would be.
Yeah.
But it's funny how I just expected. I expected the surgeon to have gone through the process of male pattern baldness themselves. If that made any sense.
Some have, some haven't.
Yeah.
But I just find the female doctors we've had are just so good with the patients.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
And the patients just love them. And part of my role is to when I send some people down to London, is to give them as much information. And this is years and years of experience coming in. And a lot of the doctors will turn around and say, we love your patients because they come in, they're so relaxed because they know exactly what's going on. When you hear about people who go to that other country, they really don't know what's going on. And like you mentioned before, they go into a big building and it's almost like a hospital. What's going on? And then they can't even speak English. That could be quite daunting.
Yeah, it feels like going into like a warehouse. Well, it's not quite a warehouse, but you're on the roster. You're next up. In you go.
So again, going back to Malaga, the fact that you're the only person, you are the centre of attention. And that is a key thing for people making decisions.
Yeah. And
if they want that, then that's what Malaga really, really delivers.
How important do you think aftercare is?
Oh, phenomenal.
Because I think a lot of people's expectation is, especially with what we were talking about with that famous other country that's known for it, you see people get on the flight, they land, they get it done, and people always laugh about the flight thereafter, because you can always tell where you're flying back from, because you know that everyone's
they're all there with the bandages
on the back. And one of the sort of one of the reputations that they have is that aftercare is pretty lacking. And yet people still go. So I think it's quite interesting.
A lot of it is based on cost.
Sure.
Okay. And this, unfortunately, is a big buying criteria for a lot of people. If you can imagine
even on something like this.
Yeah, if you're 21, 22 years of age, you'd probably not reached the peak of your income potential. So if somebody offers you something for XYZ, and then you go to another company and they're double the price, and they seem to think that you're getting an apple for an apple. And at the end of the day, it's far from the truth. Again, if you look at football teams, if you've got, a certain football team that's top of the Premiership, European champions, and they play a non-league football club, you almost guarantee that they're going to wipe the floor with them 9 times out of 10 and probably beat them 10-0. Why? Because they've got better players, they've got better staff, they've got better training, better equipment, better know-how. And when you put that together as a package, it makes a huge difference. And I still remember when I was, before COVID hit, I'm nearly 6'2", So when I used to catch the Metro link from where I live in Manchester into Piccadilly, you'd be crammed as if you was on
like a sardine.
it's like sardines. I'd be looking at people and saying, "Yep, he's been to that country and he's been to that country. He's got no chance. He could do with skin pigmentation. Oh, PRP would work well for him." And I'd be like that for 45 minutes, and then same again going home. And you can look at people and go, "Oh my God, he's had a hair transplant," because the follicle units or the hairs look like almost like a rice paddy. And instead of being nice and compact and coming out and going in the right directions,
it's sparse and spiky.
Yeah, and they just hairs going out. And also, when you look at the hairline, typically nearly all the hairs, not everyone, but nearly all the hairs in the hairline, the first two lines should be single hair follicle units. Why? Because when we were kids, before we had any hair issues, that's how our hair grew naturally.
Yeah.
And I've seen people come in and they've had a 6 hair sticking out of that angle and a 4 hair sticking at that angle and a 1 and a 2. And you just look at it and go, wow, that's a bit weird. And we use these little Ham Pro scopes, and we can put them on there and you can see the hair and you're thinking, oh my God. So the only way you can really rectify that is by having reconstructive surgery. And we get to do a lot of that. Now, this isn't just that other country.
Sure.
It's also some of these budget clinics in the UK.
Do you find quite a lot of patients coming to you having sort of almost, I mean, it's the old saying, isn't it, buy cheap, buy twice?
But just because it's cheap, there's also other clinics, who you can basically nearly double the price of ours. It really comes down to who are the surgeons and who are the medical teams. At Vinci, every medical person has been through the Vinci Academy, which is something unique. And every one of them, including the doctors, are all on payroll. This is one of the key factors, and the reason for our success is that we don't subcontract any work out.
That's interesting, yeah.
Okay, so we know what we're going to get every day of the week, every week of the month, and every month of the year.
Isn't that interesting? It's funny you said that. When I first had mine done, I had 5 days after. So I had the beard done as well. Mm-hmm. Hence the 5,000 grafts that I had in total. And then I went, and then I flew back to I was obviously in Sao Paulo. Flew back to Lisbon back to London, and then I went straight back into the office. To a few raised eyebrows, because I did look a bit like Desperate Dan, I have to say, with the stubble, right, because of course you had all the hair coming out. And yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I then started to notice many more people that have had it done, and lots of people that have had it done that it didn't look good, or it was obvious, should I say? Yeah. And in some ways, I thought you could argue that it would have probably been better to have just not had it done in the first place and waited and done it properly. And actually, do you think some people jump into these decisions too quickly? Do you think they should take this? Do you think they should spend some more time thinking through the process?
I think so. Yeah. Research helps, but there's so much BS on the internet.
Lots of bro science.
So many lies. Even when you look at Trustpilot. I remember somebody coming to me once and he says, "Oh, look at this clinic. They've got 10,000, Trustpilot reviews." I can't remember the exact number. Sure. And it was saying, when I researched that company, they'd only been in business 3 years, and they were saying that they've done over 10,000 surgeries. And I'm thinking, 10,000 surgeries in 3 years? That's some serious going. So you just know that there's a lot of lies.
Yeah.
I think when you look at the establishment and the bigger companies, they've been around for a long time, and we've certainly been around for a long time. Yeah. When you look at our pedigree, look at where we're located in Harley Street in London, and we've been in the same building, for a long, long time. And You know, to be in the West End of London and be very, very successful. Not only have we been there for a long time, but we've grown from 1 room to 2 room to now 4 surgery rooms.
And to have that heritage, I mean,
And
it's
to have that heritage, you know, we've also got the Malaga. If you look at what's happening with Vinci this year, we've got the Manchester clinic going on, this new surgical clinic, and then what's going on, you know, in Brazil. You know, there's more clinics opening up there. So we're expanding into growing markets, but we're still offering a 5-star service. And again, it comes down to who are the doctors, who are the medical teams, because at the end of the day, they're the guys that put the follicle unit, the incision in. Is it going to come out and look natural, or is it going to look like this, or hair sticking out at all weird angles, which unfortunately we get to see.
Amazing. Great stuff. Listen, Neil, absolute pleasure having you, bud.
Thank you.
Can't wait to come out to Manchester. Give us a shout when it's open. I'll be the first up there.
Perfect.
Love to have a look around. It's really exciting. Great to have you. And thanks for answering all the questions on it. So this has been really, really helpful. And I'm sure you've answered a lot of people's questions at home. So thank you for that.
Hopefully. And if they haven't, then they can always come through to us.
Exactly. Brilliant. Thanks, bud.
Thank you.
No problem. Nice to see everybody. We'll see you on the next episode.